The highway at night has its own kind of silence. Not the peaceful kind, the kind that hums through your chest and makes you notice every sound you shouldn't. Michael Turner had lived in that silence for years. He was 47, a long-haul driver from Texas, the kind of man who measured time not by calendars but by odometer digits. To him, the road was home. The white lines, the diesel smell, the distant lights of truck stops blinking like stars on the horizon. That night, he was hauling a refrigerated trailer out of Dallas. Destination, Portland, Oregon. 3 days on the road, if the weather held. He liked to run, quiet, clean, and good pay. What he didn't like was the route his dispatcher had suggested. Cutting through a stretch of highway locals called the Black Route, a desert bypass running across New Mexico and parts of Arizona. Most drivers avoided it after dark. Michael had laughed when the guy at the yard warned him. Ghost road, huh? I'll believe it when I see it. He left the terminal at dusk. Country music humming low from the cab speakers, a thermos of coffee beside him, and a familiar vibration under his seat that always made him feel like he belonged nowhere else. Hours passed. The sky turned black velvet, the desert swallowing the horizon. He hadn't seen another set of headlights in almost 40 minutes. At 1:12 a.m., the CB radio popped with static. He wasn't tuned to any active channel. He reached over to turn the volume down, but a whisper leaked through. Michael! He froze. He hadn't heard his name out loud for hours. The whisper came again, clearer this time. Michael, don't stop. He stared at the dial. Channel 19, dead quiet a second ago. He switched it off. The static vanished, but so did the comfort of the noise. For a while, the only sound was the tires on asphalt. Then, in the distance, his headlights picked out something on the shoulder of the road. A shape, human. As he got closer, he saw it was a woman, barefoot, wearing what looked like a hospital gown, her hair long and tangled. She didn't move, didn't raise a thumb for a ride, just stood there, staring straight ahead. Michael slowed a little but kept the rig rolling. When he passed, she didn't turn her head. A few miles later, his mirrors caught movement behind him. For a split second, he thought he saw her again in the red glow of his taillights, walking down the center line. He shook his head. Need more coffee, Turner. By 2 a.m., the gas gauge dipped lower than he liked. A faded sign promised fuel and food 10 miles ahead, so he took the exit. The diner looked like something out of the 1970s. Neon letters half burned out, a single pump still working. He parked the rig, stretched his legs, and walked inside. A bell jingled over the door. No customers, no waitris, just the faint buzz of a ceiling light and the smell of old grease. Hello, he called. A man stepped out from the kitchen, tall, gray beard, eyes too tired for the hour. Coffee, he asked. Yeah, black. The man poured a cup, slid it over, then leaned on the counter. Not many drive this way anymore, he said. You alone out there? Michael nodded. Always. The man stared at him for a long moment before saying quietly, If you see her again, don't stop. Michael's stomach dropped. What did you just say? The man didn't answer. He turned back toward the kitchen and disappeared. When Michael glanced at the counter again, the coffee cup was gone. He left the diner without another word, climbed into his truck, and drove off fast enough to kick gravel against the old glass door. The highway ahead shimmered in heat, even though it was after midnight. He drove for another hour, trying to shake the feeling that someone was in the cab with him. At 3 a.m., a pair of headlights appeared behind him, closing in fast. He flashed his hazards to signal the driver to pass. The light stayed right on his bumper. He slowed. They slowed. He accelerated. They matched his speed. Finally, he pulled onto the shoulder to let them go. The headlights rolled up close, so close he could see the reflection on his mirrors, then suddenly blinked out. When he climbed out of the cab, there was nothing there. No car, no sound, only the whisper of wind across the desert. He got back in and locked the doors. By 4:30 a.m., exhaustion hit him. He found a rest stop, just 2 picnic tables, a vending machine, and a row of dark bathrooms. He parked beneath a broken streetlight and shut off the engine. For a while, the silence was complete. Then came the tapping. Tap, tap, tap. At first, he thought it was the wind against the glass. Then he realized it was coming from the passenger side window. He turned. A pale face stared back. Her face, the woman from the road. She mouthed something he couldn't hear. Then she was gone. Michael started the engine, threw it into gear, and pulled back onto the highway, his heart pounding so hard he could barely breathe. When the sun finally broke over the desert, the terror began to fade into disbelief. He told himself he'd imagined it all. Too many hours without sleep, too much caffeine, tricks of the headlights. He pulled into a truck stop diner around 7 a.m., ordered eggs and coffee, and tried to act normal. But the old man behind the counter looked at him and said, "Rough night, huh? You been on the black route." Michael hesitated. "Yep, how'd you know?" The man smiled sadly. "You can always tell. Folks who see her don't ever look the same again." The second day of the run was hotter than he'd expected, the kind of heat that seems to hum inside your skull. Michael drove west with the sun behind him, trying not to think about the night before. Every mile felt longer. The desert was endless. The radio played the same 3 songs on repeat. He passed a few other rigs, nodded at them through the glass, comforted by the simple proof that he wasn't the last man on Earth. By dusk, the sky turned blood orange and the highway thinned again, mile after mile with no signs of life. He pulled into a rest area marked mile 191, needing fuel and food. There was only one other truck parked there, a faded blue Peterbilt with its engine idling low. Michael climbed out and stretched his back. A man stepped down from the blue rig, gray-haired, sunburned, wearing a denim vest with the name Patch Reed. "You headed west tonight?" Reed asked. "Yep, Portland load." Reed stared toward the darkening road. "If you're smart, you'll stay put until morning. Bad stretch out there. Folks vanish between here and the state line." Michael gave a tired laugh. "Ghost stories again?" Reed didn't smile. "Ghosts, people, whatever they are. You see lights on that road that don't belong to anything. Hear voices on the CB that call you by name. You keep driving, you might not come back." Michael shrugged it off, but something in the man's tone clung to him. He topped off his tanks, bought coffee from the vending machine, and climbed back into the cab. When he checked his mirrors before pulling out, Reed's truck was gone. Not pulling onto the road. Not parked. Gone, like it had never been there. An hour later, hunger gnawed at him. Then out of nowhere a sign appeared, "Reston, 5 miles food, fuel, lodging." He didn't remember seeing it on the map. He followed the exit anyway. The road curved down into a small town. Old storefronts, a church steeple, and a diner lit with warm yellow bulbs. It looked alive, almost too alive, considering he hadn't seen a single car. He parked and walked inside. A jukebox played soft country music. 3 people sat at the counter, talking quietly. The waitress smiled. "Coffee, haunt." He nodded, sat, ordered a burger. For a few minutes, it felt normal. Then his eyes caught something strange. A framed newspaper behind the counter. Reston destroyed by fire, 1989. The photo showed the same diner, burned to its foundation. He turned toward the waitress, but she was gone. So were the other customers. The jukebox played nothing but static. Michael ran out into the street, and the town was dark. No lights, no sound, only the black outlines of ruined buildings and the stench of ash. He stumbled back to his rig, shaking, and drove until the empty highway swallowed the last trace of that town. By midnight, exhaustion blurred everything. He told himself the desert heat was playing tricks on him. But then the CB radio clicked alive again. "Breaker 19. The voice was gravelly calm. "Anyone out there rolling eastbound on 191? Michael hesitated, thumb hovering over the mic. Finally he replied, "Yeah, this is Turner. Westbound, though. You got trouble." Silence. Then a faint laugh. "You shouldn't be out here, Turner." He froze. "Who is this?" The line hissed. "You left her behind. She's not happy." He ripped the power cord out of the unit, heart hammering. The radio stayed dead. But through the windshield far down the road, a shape shimmered in his high beams, tall, thin, walking the center line. He laid on the horn. The figure didn't flinch. When he roared past, his side mirror caught her face, mouth wide open, eyes black, screaming silently. Near dawn, he finally spotted another truck stop, a small one with flickering lights and a faded Sinclair sign. He needed to rest. Inside, 2 men stood by the coffee urn, both wearing matching red jackets with an emblem he didn't recognize, a black triangle inside a circle. They looked up when he entered. "You made it," one said, smiling. His His teeth were too white. "Excuse me?" Michael asked. "You were expected. You've seen her, haven't you?" The second man poured coffee, never breaking eye contact. "She follows those who take the black route." "But you already know that." Michael backed toward the door. "You guys running some kind of joke?" Neither moved closer, but both spoke in unison. "Turn back before sunrise." He ran out, climbed into his truck, and floored it. In the mirror, the station lights went out one by one until there was only black behind him. Somewhere between state lines, he realized the clock on the dashboard had stopped at 3:33 a.m. The GPS froze too. The highway stretched on forever. No exits, no signs. He drove and drove, but the odometer didn't change. Finally, the truck sputtered. The fuel gauge read empty, even though he just filled it. He pulled to the shoulder, stepped out. The desert was silent, moonless. Then he saw tracks in the dirt beside the truck. Bare footprints, small, leading away into the dark. He followed them. They led to a row of burned crosses sticking up from the sand, each marked with a trucker's license plate screwed to the wood. He read one aloud. "Read TX 944. The man from the rest stop. A whisper drifted through the still air. "Michael." He turned. A woman stood between the crosses, her eyes reflecting like headlights. "You weren't supposed to stop." The world spun. Heat, sand, noise, and then nothing. When he opened his eyes, it was morning. He was behind the wheel, the truck rolling steadily west. The fuel gauge read full. The clock ticked forward like nothing had happened. He whispered to himself, "Dream." It was a dream, but when he glanced in the side mirror, the back of his trailer was covered in black handprints. The next morning bled into the road like a fever dream. Michael's hands shook around the wheel, coffee untouched, his eyes hollow from the night before. Every rational part of his mind told him to turn back, to find a town, called Dispatch, anything, but something deeper inside whispered, "Finish the route." He drove through hours of empty highway, the kind that eats at your sense of time. No billboards, no cars. Even the radio had gone quiet, only the faint hum of the engine and the soft tap of gravel under the tires. The black handprints on the trailer had dried into a smear of soot. He tried to ignore them, but they seemed to move slightly each time he looked in the mirror. By late afternoon, the temperature dropped sharply. Fog rolled across the desert floor, thick and unnatural. A figure appeared in the distance, standing dead center in the lane. Michael slowed, heart pounding. It was a man, tall, wearing the same red jacket as the ones from the gas station. He raised a hand, signaling Michael to stop. When the truck came to a crawl, the man leaned toward the window and spoke through the glass. "You missed your turn." Michael rolled the window down an inch. "What turn?" The man's smile stretched too wide. "Back there. You passed the world you belong to." Then, without another word, he walked into the fog and vanished. Michael slammed the accelerator. The rig roared forward. He didn't stop until the fog disappeared behind him and the sky went black again. He found the sign by accident, a weather-worn board that read "Black Route, Restricted Access." Below it, a smaller sign said, "Deliveries only. No through traffic." He shouldn't have turned, but his GPS, frozen all morning, flickered back to life for the first time, its arrow pointing directly onto that road. He followed it. The asphalt changed texture, cracked and dark, as if burned. On both sides stood old telephone poles with wires that led nowhere. A heavy static buzz filled the cab, even though the radio was off. Then, up ahead, lights appeared. Not headlights, torches. A circle of them, flickering in the dark. He slowed. Figures in red jackets stood in a ring across the road, their faces hidden behind mirrored masks. In the center of the circle was a single burning cross, smaller than the others he'd seen in the desert. And hanging from it, swaying slowly, was a truck license plate. It read, "Turner, 481. His." Michael threw the truck in reverse, tires screaming. But no matter how far he backed up, the lights didn't get smaller. They moved with him. The road began to bend and twist like it was folding in on itself. The GPS spun wildly, arrows circling. He shouted, "What do you want from me?" 100 voices answered at once. To keep driving. The truck lurched forward. The road straightened again, but it wasn't the same highway. The world outside was darker, almost colorless. Every few miles, he passed another rig. Same model, same color, same trailer number as his. In one, the driver looked exactly like him. Michael honked. The other driver did too, in perfect rhythm. For miles they drove side by side, reflections on opposite sides of a mirror. Then, the twin truck veered off the road and vanished into the desert, swallowed by black sand. At 2:14 a.m., another trucker named Ray Holloway was running the same stretch of highway. He came over the CB, breathless, voice trembling. "Dispatch, this is Holloway. There's a rig up ahead, hazard lights on, driver's door open. You want to check it out?" The dispatcher's voice crackled back. "Go ahead, Ray. What's the number on that unit?" Pause. Then Ray said, "Unit 481. Turner's rig. Static." He climbed down and walked toward the idling truck. The engine was running smooth, headlights cutting into the sand. The cab was empty. Coffee still hot in the cup holder. Michael's jacket folded neatly on the seat. But on the windshield, scrawled in black ash, were 3 words. "Keep driving west." Then Ray heard something. A woman's voice, soft, almost singing, from somewhere in the dark behind the truck. He turned his flashlight toward it. The light hit a shape, pale, motionless, smiling. Before he could speak, the truck's horn blared on its own. The headlights flickered out. When the police arrived 2 hours later, both rigs were gone. All they found were tire tracks that stopped abruptly in the middle of the desert, and footprints leading away into the sand. To this day, truckers on the western routes talk about Turner's line. A phantom CB signal that comes through on foggy nights. A voice that says, "Westbound, mile marker 191, anyone out there?" Those who answer claim they hear another voice, female, distant, whispering behind his. Sometimes, when they pass that mile marker, their radios flicker and their clocks freeze at 3:33 a.m. And if you ever drive that highway and see a lone Peterbilt idling on the shoulder with hazard lights flashing, do not stop, because the last thing you'll hear before the world goes black is a woman's voice whispering your name and a man on the radio saying, "Keep driving west."